Okay, great. So I've got my colored image in front of me. I'm just gonna move it to the side and we're gonna start working on our canvas. We've got it partitioned. Now every quadrant we can break down into quadrants again and further into more quadrants. I don't think we're gonna have to get dividing into make quadrants here, but you get the gist, right? Also, as we start drawing our lines, we're gonna be able to start seeing where lines should meet up in our proportions. So I'm gonna move this to the side, and now we're working on my canvas. Okay, it's just canvas that's been stapled into wood. All right, so this is my vertical halfway point, this is my horizontal halfway point, and then in my top left quadrant, what I've done is divided it into another quadrant. So that helps me identify on our original picture where the building is going to start. So if this is my halfway point, this building is going to be a little bit more than halfway between here and here. Okay, and I'm going to be able to take that line all the way down past this halfway point, and I'll bring it on down to about here. Okay, so go ahead and do that. Get your ruler, you know your halfway point's here, you take your ruler, you bring that line all the way down to about here, and that's going to be your building. Now we can go ahead and just kind of focus on that building at this point. What I've done is also worked out a diagonal line for the retaining wall and for the dock. But let's go ahead and just focus on the building at the moment. Okay, so we'll notice that if we're focusing just on this piece, we notice that if we were to look at just, you know, the space right here, that the door goes halfway up past that halfway point and just curves in, right? So that really kind of really simplifies what we're gonna do here. So I know I've got this line that comes up, and I feel like maybe, yeah, because this line is gonna come in here and intersect with the building a bit more. So as we play with the drawing, we're going to identify, okay, from here to here, that this door should not be the halfway point, and I have it past the halfway point. So from here to here is our building, right? That's the halfway point, and it's less than the halfway point. So I need to actually bring my line here, draw up and around. Okay. And when we're sketching, we sketch lightly, not too hard. And we'll be able to cover up most of these lines with our paints. The higher quality acrylic paint you have, the thicker it is. And so you saw, it's good for me to make a mistake because you saw how quickly and easy it was for me to go from where I initially made the line and how I erased it and I brought it over. So there's gonna be a lot of that, just kind of going back and forth. Some other details that we're going to want to do when it comes to the door is we're going to want to create this line right here because that's it's not just a shadow, but it's an indentation somewhat, right? So we'll want to work on that. You'll notice that it comes out a little further than the actual door. So really we're nitpicking line by line. So let's see. Do you see how this line actually comes forward? So the door is actually going to be recessed back. So my door, so we'll draw like a little line that goes back into it like that. Okay, and then that's going to help me create another parallel line that I can take up and around. Parallel meaning these lines are never going to intersect. We've got a straight line and then turns into a curved line. And then it kind of narrows out a little bit. Okay. And remember, all of this is going to get painted, so these lines don't have to be perfect, but they do need to give us a general idea of what we're going to be painting, because this is going to be shaded darker than the building, and it's going to help give us that sense of depth. And all right. Now when we look at the door, And we're going to do this for everything, right? And then you guys are going to just kind of comment back to me and let me know if you're able to take the strategies that I'm teaching you here with the door, and I'll do some more areas, and let me know if you can use and apply what you're learning here to other parts of other buildings, villas, mountain homes, lake houses, you name it. You know, they're gorgeous, gorgeous homes. All right, so the next thing I want to do is I look at my shape that I have, and I've got this line coming down, and it comes down more than halfway. So from here to here, it's longer. From here to here, it's shorter. So I'm going to, it's all about constantly going back and forth and dissecting, right? So from here to here, it's longer. From here to here, it's shorter. And a lot of these lines are, you know, you just have to, oh, and another thing, you have to trick your eye and separate what your eye sees from what your brain thinks you see. So the other thing you want to focus on is this line meets up with this line, but not over here. So when I create this line, I want it to go all the way up. But when I create this line, it doesn't go all the way up because we have a different width. So when I go from here, I will take my ruler out, and I will do my very best to do a nice faint line that goes up and down. And that's going to create part of my door. Okay. Then the next thing I'm going to do in regards to my door is, where on my door do I draw this line, right? Well, I want it to be in proportion to where this retaining wall comes in. All right. So we're talking about this line on the door needs to be at the same height as that retaining wall. So I had already done the retaining wall, and let me go ahead and show you guys how I went about the retaining wall. All I did was I looked at an angle that I had that would start about here on this house, and I wanted to make sure that it ended about right here. Right here being less than half of this quadrant. Okay, and that's the bottom part of the wall. However, as I move it up and I go from here to here, it's going to go past halfway on this quadrant. Okay, so we're just looking at lines. We're taking it from the villa, taking our ruler, bringing it down. And you could say, okay, I need to create this triangle. How do I best create that triangle? And that's a great way to go about it, right? So I'm looking at this quadrant. I want to replicate the triangle that I saw right here. So that's going to give me my 90-degree angle. And right here, what degree is that? Maybe 30, I have 20 degrees maybe. So I'm going to take my ruler, create that tiny angle. That's obviously 90-degree angle. And I'm just going to bring it up. And I want to identify where on the house that it's going to hit. Okay. And then you'll just create it coming out a little bit further. Same thing over here. So the whole point about going about that was to figure out, okay, where on my house is this going to match up? So about right here, my retaining wall and my door. Okay, I think that looks about right. And I've got kind of a width right here. Now I'm constantly going back and forth between my actual drawing and down here. So I've got a thin line that comes to about here, and then it gets thick right here, and then here gets thicker. All right, and down below is pretty thick too. So as you're drawing, like right now myself, I kind of confuse myself a little bit with my lines. So what I need to do is honestly kind of go in there and clean it up a little bit. I need to know where this is in relation to this. So I'm constantly looking at my relationship between this line and this line, everywhere that I go. I have birds in my art studio, Just in case you hear the birds, that's what you're hearing. They're chickens, they're bantam chickens, bantam silkies. They're real tiny and cute. So line goes up. Okay. So as I approach this curve, notice that it barely peaks above that halfway point. So as I'm doing my drawing here, I need to remember that it's barely peaking up and above. So I just need to keep my line as proportionate as possible. So I'm just working on some of the window trim. Just a lot of parallel lines along here. And you'll notice as you work these lines, you'll just go back and forth and you're gonna make sure, okay, are my lines in the right place? And if they're not, no big deal. Just go back and fix them. And as you get more practice under your belt, you'll be able to do this with just painting it. But this image is technical. You've got a lot of things in the foreground and background. All right, so get working on this as much as possible. What you'll want to do is also figure out the shapes of your lantern, okay? So draw a line here, the point of the lantern's there, this part kind of comes across here. You've got not a straight line, but you have one coming in diagonally at a very small degree. So what I'd like to see is this whole part of your building complete. And then you can also work on the box down here. That's what I'm gonna work on, and then I'm gonna work my way back. I'm gonna start with the foreground, work my way back. As we get painting, we're gonna do opposite. We're gonna start with the background and kind of work our way forward. All right, text me if you have any questions.